Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Getting Started with Microsoft 365 Copilot. And this webinar is going to be featuring our special guests, Luke Evans and Zoe Wilson. My name is Silvio, and I'm a sales executive here at Syskit. And as already mentioned, here with me, we're going to have Luke and Zoe, our stars of the day, and my colleague Bruno, who will later on be showing you a demo of, Syskit Point platform. So as many of you already knows us as a company, but some of you maybe don't. So let me do a brief introduction. So Syskit is a software development company founded more than 13 years ago. We develop products for both M365 and as well as SharePoint on-premise. We currently have more than 3,500 customers all across the world, and those customers are ranging from, small businesses up to large corporations with hundreds of thousands of employees. We currently have 4 products in our offering, and this includes our award-winning SP Docket. I believe a lot of your SharePoint on-premise admins here will know about that, as well as the Syskit Point for Microsoft 365 governance, which is, a product we'll be demonstrating later on today. Now, just before we start, let's set up a few housekeeping items just so you know what the situation there is. So all registrants will receive a recording of the webinar, within a few days after the webinar is done. It's not like it's going to last for days, it's going to last for an hour, but you know what I mean. So after the presentation, we'll have a short demo of Syskit Point platform. We're going to show you how it can help you prepare for the Copilot era by learning about workspace permissions and how it can help you set up different compliance policies, all around your environment. After that, there's going to be a quick Q&A session where Luke and Zoe will answer any questions you may have for them. So for that, you can just use the Q&A function on the right side of the screen. You can just click it and you can ask the question whenever throughout the entire session. They're going to be answered on, later. Now, I'm done with my blabbing, and it's part where I present our special guests. So we have Zoe Wilson. She's a senior director at Avanade, a Microsoft MVP, and the Microsoft Regional Director. She's also an experienced public speaker, as you probably already know, and you're gonna see. Zoe brings together, several years of technology leadership experience, combined with over 15 years of experience working with collaborative tools such as SharePoint and other Microsoft technologies. On the other hand, we have Luke Evans, who is a Microsoft MVP and a solution architect with over 16 years of experience, especially when it comes to architecture and end-to-end delivery of cloud digital transformation programs. Actually, Luke is currently focused on Microsoft 365 services and the technologies that underpin that service, basically to support them with a strong focus on, security and identity. I guess that's enough of an introduction from my side. So I'm just going to give a warm welcome to Zoe and Luke and, give things over to them. Zoe, Luke, you ready?
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I think we are ready to rock and roll. Now, a bit of a change for us. Typically, I would drive the slides, but I'm actually out on the move today. I'm not on my usual base, so we're going to have Zoe drive today, and we're going to get straight into it. Thanks everybody, first of all, for joining us. We're here today to talk about getting started with Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now, we would be remiss if we didn't do a short intro on who we are. After that, we're looking to understand and if you go for the next one, we're looking for the promise of human and AI. How powerful can we be together? And that's the next part. We're then looking really to see what Microsoft 365 Copilot, what is it? What can it do? And the next part will lead to is what I can do with that, and how can I basically, what can it do for me is really what we're trying to get at. And the final one, which is probably the one that's most exciting to me, at least, other than the technology itself, is what can I do to better prepare for Microsoft 365 Copilot is the one, and kind of some top tips from our side as to how you can be ready is the thing. And I think in terms of the housekeeping, like we said already, any questions that you have, if you could save them to the end, that would be awesome. A very brief intro about myself. I won't bore you with too much today. I do love talking about myself, so you have to forgive me. I should say if my connection is a bit poor, apologies. I'm actually on the move. So if I tend to go in and out, Zoe, I'm sure can talk on my behalf. We both like to talk quite a bit, so we'll try to keep it to the 45 minutes. Is probably the simple answer there on that one. I'm a solutions architect, technology focused. I did, I think 6 years at Microsoft in SharePoint, so that's really my background, collaborative technologies. Since then, in the last 4 or 5 years, I've been in policing in the UK, so really a strong focus on security, identity, and I have the great pleasure of sharing the stage today with Zoe, who I worked with for a number of years at Agilysys. So I'll hand over to you, Zoe, to take it away.
Brilliant, thanks, Luke. It's great to be here with all of you again, talking about something that is super exciting. I've spent the last year working at Avanade as the Europe Workplace Value Realization Offering Lead, which basically means that I'm helping clients across Europe get the most out of the investments that they make in Microsoft 365. I come from a technology background, although I work in more of a practice lead, business leadership type role now. So I worked for many years with Luke. I have a good grounding in SharePoint and collaborative technologies. And my role now is really helping understand what this means for businesses, what it means for organizations and end users, and how we go about getting the value out of that. Now, moving on then, so the promise of human and AI. When we think about what Copilot is, essentially this is generative AI embedded in the workplace platforms that, that many of us use for most of every working day, to be honest. And when we start to think about what AI embedded in our workplace platforms will enable for us, it's really augmenting all of our capabilities. It's making it easier for us to be more productive and more effective. It's removing the drudgery of work and unleashing creativity. It's going to democratize access to technology. And what I mean by that is, the example I always like to use is Power Automate, because anybody with an M365 license can go and use Power Automate today to automate something that maybe they have to do on a regular basis, or that's something that has lots of repetitive tasks in it. But to do that, you need to know how to use Power Automate. And if you don't already know how to use Power Automate, then you have to go and put the effort in to learn how to do how to create a workflow. So when we start to think about Gen AI being embedded in the tools that we use and how it can democratize access and lower that barrier to entry, what we really mean is that it can help people do things that previously required specialist knowledge. Because if anybody can just use natural language to automate a boring or repetitive part of their work, then that suddenly makes it much more accessible to people. These types of tools are going to increase employee satisfaction. It will reduce the stress and the mental load and free up time so that we can focus on more higher value activities. And if we look at some of the numbers behind this, I'll let you talk through this one, Luke.
Thanks, Zoe. I think how long would you say, Zoe? In the last maybe 20, when did ChatGPT unleash the world? Was it November 20?
November.
What was
23.
What was the exact date?
It's
November,
10 months ago.
I think it's November. Yeah, 10 months. So I'd say the last 10 months has been an absolute explosion of kind of AI everywhere. It's been bonkers. Is probably the simple way of putting it in richer terms. I think what we would say though is this is basically from a Microsoft Work Trends Index. They tend to do one of these reports every year. They often offer a great number of stats that typically are of great value. And I think the one that we're looking at here is these are stats really around AI and how they can better help us work, or will AI fix work is really the key core concept. And I think the key heavy hitters here is 70% of people would like to delegate as much of their work as possible to an AI. I mean, I would love to whack it all against an AI and just take the money and run. But I think 68% of people say they don't have enough interrupted focus time. And that one, I can certainly feel the pain. And that's just me as a solutions architect. Zoe, I would hate to see your calendar nowadays. I would imagine the lack of focus time, I'd imagine you're certainly one of these people is the thing. And I think 64% of people say they struggle with having the time and energy to do their job. Now, I feel like I typically have the energy and I can bring the heat. most of the time, but yeah, sometimes I can feel the strain as well. So I think there's a large
Yeah,
clamoring from certainly the Microsoft. Yeah, go for it, Zoe.
yeah, just on that side, just on that as well. So 64% of people are saying that they struggle with the time and energy to do their job, and for those 64% of people, they're 3.5 times more likely to struggle with innovation and strategic thinking. So actually, when we start to think about removing the drudgery from people's lives, it's not just about giving them the time and energy to do their job, but it's about freeing them up so that they can start to focus on things that are higher value and more strategic.
Yeah, and that's spot on. I think the efficiency one that you called out in the previous slide lends to that, Zoe. And I think, it isn't all roses. It's probably the simple answer I would say. It's great that AI is coming, but I've heard a lot of fear mongering around the concept as well as the thing. I think similarly from the Work Trends Index, and I also went back to the McKinsey Institute and found a few more stats around automation and kind of jobs displaced, because that's the one I always hear when talking on the subject, is more about how many jobs are going to be displaced by this sort of technology. Now, 49% of people say they're worried that AI will replace their jobs. I feel, Zoe, how are you feeling about it? You feeling good? I feel okay for the moment. I feel like I'm in a relatively safe spot. But what do you think?
So I'm reasonably confident, and actually in my role I get to talk to lots of organisations about Copilot and about generative AI, and understanding what they want to use it for is one of the conversations that I have with them. And one of the things that's been really pleasing to see is that people, the vast majority of organisations are approaching this in terms of how they do more. How can they help their current employees upskill and reskill? How can they help them be more productive, more efficient, reduce the time to market, the time to produce things, all of these things that will have like a positive impact on profitability and the amount of customers you can serve and things like that. So I know that there is fear that AI will that we'll lose jobs as a result of it, and it may be that there will be some roles that will become redundant, but what we'll see as a result of this is a whole heap of other jobs that didn't exist before. If you look at smartphones, and when iPhones were introduced, things like Uber and Deliveroo and all of these smartphone apps and things like that, there's these whole businesses that have been built around the capabilities and the technology that the smartphone provides, and all of these people who are developing solutions and thinking about how businesses use this new technology. And while some jobs now might be redundant in this new world, there's going to be a whole heap of other things that people can do, and we don't know what that looks like yet. So there's a real opportunity to start to think about how do we give people the skills that they'll need for this new world, and rather than just thinking, well, people won't have their job anymore, what else can they do that's valuable, and how do we get them there?
Mm-hmm. And I think for me, it's similar. I think for me, I always look at it as an accelerant. That's typically how I approach it, is the one is how can I do more with my time? And I think one of the key points here is 82% of leaders say that their employees will need new skills to be prepared for the growth of AI. So I think it's a recognized trend that people are going to need new skills to basically work with this technology. And this one, I was searching around the other day looking for a kind of a figure as to how this was. But this one was from, I think, 2017. So with a pinch of salt, but it said 400 to 800 million jobs could be displaced by 2030 around the world using automation, and AI is the key. Now, I know it's not exactly just automation, but I thought this was a pretty good number, really. So I wanted to include something about jobs displacement, and I think Zoe's right. We need to kind of look at it as an opportunity, not just fear it. Gloom and doom really is the important thing. All right. Overview of Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now, what I would say, this pains me to say, but I'm going to say it anyways. I actually haven't got hands-on technology or hands-on playing with the technology as of yet. Even as an MVP, I'm still kind of waiting in the wings. Now, I am very pleased to say that Zoe has actually played with the stuff, and she actually has a better understanding of what it looks like. So my stuff is going to be purely theoretical as it stands, but Zoe can offer some real-world insight into how it works and how it actually feels. So I think we pulled together some key points around what Copilot is, what it actually is an AI powered tool that works alongside you. And as Zoe said, it's embedded into your day-to-day kind of workouts within 365. So your Word, your PowerPoint, Teams, Excel, and so forth. It basically allows you to focus on the work that matters most to you. I know this is a bit marketing, but the real key thing is that we're trying to basically free up time away from tasks that basically bog you down. And we really want to increase the efficiency using this tool. It integrates with AI capabilities directly into your core workplace platforms. It utilizes OpenAI's GPT-4 large language model, so LLMs, and Microsoft Graph, so the way to look into your organizational's data and basically take that text input into and turn it into content into 365 apps. Copilot was, and this pains me, this is frustrating, these next 2 points for me, but it was launched in preview to 20 organizations in March 2023, and it's been expanded to 600 plus organizations from July in an extended early access program. Now, Zoe is very fortunate she actually has this, and I think that one of the hottest topics I left on the bottom point, but I'll probably transfer it to Zoe in a minute, but I think that it will cost 30 users per user, or $30 per user per month, and I think the pitch from the MS side is sorry, Zoe's just had a tail pop up. I think she was trying to move the cat along, but I would be remiss not to mention it. I think the key here is that it does sound rather expensive at kind of the initial figure, but I think the pitch from Microsoft is they're looking to basically save you $1 a day is really the understanding that I've heard is the one. And Zoe, what have you heard from your customers talking about the price?
Yeah, so it's interesting, isn't it? Because before Microsoft announced the pricing, I think the expectation was that it was going to be expensive. And my take on it, based on some of the things that I'd heard just through kind of like not from a work context, but just through people that I know, was that it was going to be higher than $30 per user per month. So I was actually pleasantly surprised where it landed.
Okay.
It is going to be expensive. I mean, $30 per user per month on top of an E3 or an E5, and then other add-ons that people might have as well. It does start to add up. But actually, based on what I've seen so far, I think that if people use it, the value will definitely be there. That bit about will people use it though becomes really important, because when you're paying $30 per user per month, deploying it to someone and them just just not using it, not getting the value out of it, it isn't an option. And when I've talked to customers, everybody wants it, and they all want it for different reasons. But everybody that I talk to sees the value that this can bring to their organisation in different ways. And it may be that they choose not to license everybody, because licensing everybody in an organisation will be really expensive. But part of the work that organisations are doing in the early access programme is understanding, like, do we need to license everybody? Where is it going to add value? How do we get this out to people, and how do we make sure that they're using it and capture the value?
Yeah. It's, to be honest, everything I've seen from it looks awesome. I'm over the moon to get my hands on it. Now, I'll take a few, if that's all right, Zoe, and you can just catch me where I get it wrong, because you've got the real world experience is the thing. But on, say, I think the first one's quite an easy one, is the one, hopefully. So Copilot in Word, you can see a little kind of demo that we've got on screen that's publicly available. And it's pretty damn cool, is the thing. So, I mean, what we can do is that you can go into a document, you can basically write a short synopsis. It can basically create, it can edit, it can summarize, it can take a prompt that you've got here. And when the GIF plays, I'm not quite sure where it's got to, but when it starts going, what we should see is the ability. Okay. Well, that's quite all right. We can rock and roll and describe it. So bear with me for a moment. What it really is a prompt. So you can create content with Copilot. So we could ask it to draft kind of a project proposal based on a document that's stored in maybe your OneNote, or from some notes from OneNote, or it could be from SharePoint, and basically have it draft that proposal or that project plan from basically content stored within 365. It can basically take in, say you've got a document, say you've generated one from Copilot, or you've written one from scratch. We can have it review that content. We can have it summarize it. It can have it change your writing style. So it can change whether it's more professional. I think the tone is what they call it. So the tone of your writing style, it can take that into consideration. So you could ask for a Word to basically make your writing style more professional or more informal. I think the real power for me with 365, or from what I had in this demo lined up, was really the ability to basically have it so you can ingest content from across 365 and have that included in the prompts is the one. And Word, I think, is fairly simplistic in terms of the capabilities. It's really about content creation, content editing, content summarization, and so forth is the one. And that's the key drivers I see from the Word side.
Yeah, so there's a few things that I think will be really powerful with Copilot in Word. One is the ability to, if you're in a meeting and you've got a few people who are just adding notes for a document that you might want to structure, and you just kind of get everything down in rough sentences, being able to go through it line by line or paragraph by paragraph and get it to rewrite it and give you different variations of what you might want to replace it with, I think will be super helpful, and it can accelerate going from brainstorming through to having something that's like a document that's ready to share with people. And then from a knowledge perspective, that summarization is super powerful, because I think that this will start to change how we interact with content. So like, imagine I've got like a big, 20-page, a big long Word document. I'm not sure what the limit is, but I can use Copilot to summarize this Word document for me. And then I can ask it questions about what's in the document. So if it gives me a summary and says, these are kind of the key messages, I can then ask it a more detailed question about one of those things, and it will go and find the answer for me based on what's in the document. So, for people who have to consume a lot of long, like a lot of Word documents, a lot of long documents, being able to interact with knowledge in that way, rather than having to like read through it line by line, or like scan through to find the bit that you want, will be really powerful. One example that I've seen of this is like with an FAQ document, where you can have tons of FAQs in a document, and then if there's a question that you want to know the answer to, you ask Copilot, and it finds the FAQ, it finds the answer based on what's in the FAQs and tells you what the answer is. Or it tells you that it doesn't know the answer, in which case you know that you need to find out what it is and add it to the FAQ.
That's awesome. That's too cool, eh? And I think, I've got some examples of how it might help me in solution architecture a bit later on. But Word and lengthy documents are something I'm very familiar with, is the thing. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't look like our little embedded demos are playing, but we can talk through kind of what it actually should do, or what it looks like as part of the demo is the one. So rest assured, we can kind of still get there, is the important thing. Now, Excel, Zoe.
We will share the slides as well. So if you want the slides afterwards, you want to actually see the GIFs that we've put in here, so you get the demo. We'll make sure that that's shared so that you can actually see them in action. So Copilot in Excel. Copilot in Excel will help you analyze and explore the insights from your data using natural language. And if I talk you through like a scenario that I often use when talking about Copilot. Earlier this year, I had to prep for a business review, and this was a 3-hour meeting. And to do the prep for this business review, it took me 30 hours. And that the first bit of it was in Power BI, so we're not talking about that here, but I basically gave up on being able to get the insights out of Power BI that I needed. So I exported all of the data into Excel, and then I spent many hours doing like VLOOKUPs and pivot tables and things like that, trying to get the trends and these kind of specific data points out that I needed for this business review. With Copilot in Excel, if I create that, if I turn that data into like a named table inside of Excel, I can then ask it questions. So instead of me having to go and pivot and find what the trends were for sales of a certain thing for the last 3 years, I can ask Copilot, and Copilot will tell me. And it can give me, it can give me kind of the same output as a pivot table, but I can be really focused about what I want it to give me. And it can do that in text. It can give me charts to help me visualize as well. And I can also interact with it in a way that will help me model how things might change. If certain things in the data changes, how that might impact profitability or something like that.
I think the key for me in terms of Excel is, Sorry, Zoe.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say that. So that
Go for
business
it.
review example. So that it took me 30 hours in February to prep for that meeting. I've calculated that that would probably take me 3 hours in the Copilot world, which is like a 90% reduction in the amount of time I'm spending doing something that's like one of my least favorite things to do, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Zoe. I think that the thing for me is the natural language processing, because a lot of the time in Excel, I know what I want to do. It's how can I get there is really the challenge for me in terms of formulas and trying to understand which one should I use an X lookup here, should I use an if? And I think a lot of the time, prepping for migrations or something like that is looking at large tables of who has what and what do they have access to, and this might help kind of. Well, I can see it certainly helping speed up how I get to the end answer much quicker.
Okay, so next we've got Copilot in PowerPoint. Now, again, the same as with Word, Copilot can be used to help you create content in PowerPoint, or it can be used to help you understand or comprehend PowerPoint presentations that you're looking at as well. And there are different ways to use it. You can start from a prompt where you just tell it what you want a presentation on. So in some of the demos I've done, I've asked it to give me a presentation on preparing to travel to Mars or something like that, and it basically goes away based on the information that it's been trained on, and it comes up with a presentation on that. The one that's more useful from a business context perspective, though, is being able to ask it to create a PowerPoint presentation from an existing file. So giving it a Word document and asking it to create a PowerPoint presentation based on the content of the Word file. And you can also use it to do things like formatting as well. So ask it to change all of the slide titles on the slides to a certain color and a certain font and a certain size, and then it will just go away and you'll see this formatting change be applied all the way down the slides. You can ask it to consolidate slides into like a 3-slide summary. You can ask it to add images to slides for you. And then again, when we think about comprehension, you can ask it to summarize the presentation. You can ask it to tell you what the key slides are in the presentation and what the key messages are. And then you can start to ask more detailed questions, which it will try to answer again based on what's in the actual PowerPoint presentation. Okay, Luke.
Awesome stuff again, I think. Yeah, let's have a look. So Outlook, well, I'm not going to lie to you guys, Outlook is not one of my favorite tools out there, so I figured I would take this one and see how I could use Microsoft 365 Copilot to better use kind of Outlook is the one. So I'm more a fan of real-time communication, but I appreciate the need for email, and I think I can certainly improve on my own email kind of habits is the one. I think where Copilot can add value is a number of things. So it can really interact with your messages, your inbox and content across 365. But I think for me, some of the ones I often get placed on lengthy email threads, and it may be that you want to kind of, like Zoe's alluded to, it's really that comprehension and understanding of that. So can you ask Copilot to summarize this email thread and pull out the key pertinent messages that I need to know? And that just blows my mind. If you could actually take that content and produce that, I mean, that's going to save me oodles of time. I think other ones that I would certainly find interesting, I often struggle when I sat there thinking I have a concept or a theme of what I want to write an email about. It's quite often wordy or lengthy in terms of technical discussion, but I can use Copilot to basically create or draft up and scaffold a new email, feed it some content from, say, OneNote, feed it content from a previous Teams meeting, something like that, and help build out the basis of that email. And I think that is going to be absolutely killer. I think the other one, I can often get lost in kind of the emails I have. And another one that I can see is probably basically asking Copilot to summarize kind of the emails I've missed. Or, if I'm in an all-day meeting, can you summarize what I've missed? Can you flag the most important ones and bring them to the top so I can action them immediately is the one. And I think, that alone is some great functionality. So I think that those are the key ones that I think I would use for it.
Yeah, so one of the things that I always really like to show Copilot in Outlook do is actually being able to use it to draft a response in a different language. So I've asked it to draft a reply in Chinese, which is one of the supported Copilot languages. And I sent this to one of my colleagues, and they use Translate in Outlook to be able to translate that back to English. And then they replied to me in Chinese as well. When you think about people who work in multinational or global organizations, or with clients who are in different countries and speak different languages, that's just mind-blowing.
Well, Zoe, you're too much of a jet setter for me, I'm afraid. You know, at the moment, my customers are based in the UK, so I don't really have a need, but that's an awesome example. I could only ask it to translate regional dialects, really, is the one, and I'm not sure, you know, Yorkshire is going to be supported, or up north, I should say.
Okay, so next we have Copilot in Teams, which is fantastic. So in Teams, there's a few different places where you get the Copilot experience. One is in chats, and there's also the business chat, which is like an app that you add into Teams as well, which is your Copilot virtual assistant. And then the other is in meetings, and we'll look at the meetings one in just a second. When we think about Copilot in chats, it's super powerful. I've tested this with the one-to-one chat I have with my boss, and you know, I can ask it things like, summarize the chat for the last week. Do I have any outstanding actions for my boss? Or what outstanding actions do we have? What was our last conversation about this specific project? And it will go back and look through the chat history and basically summarize and tell me what I need to do and what I've missed. I'm also in lots of group chats as well, and being able to, like, you know, imagine you go on holiday for a week and you come back and this group chat's got like 1 million messages in. Instead of having to get up to date, you can just say, summarize this chat, and it will go through and pick out all of the key messages and summarize them for you with actual links that will take you back to the specific parts of the conversation so that you can actually read it in context. And when it comes to getting up to date, or getting back up to date with really busy group chats or after being out on leave, that's just fantastic. The other things that you can do with business chat as well. So we don't have a non-working gift for that. But business chat is kind of your private space where you can ask questions. And that will basically search across your Outlook and your Teams and your files and your content and context and things that Copilot might be connected to or search. So I can ask business chat, you know, what outstanding actions have I got for the last week, and that will look across everything and tell me what outstanding actions I've got. Or I can feed it a file and ask me to summarize the key points from a specific file, and this works with PDFs as well. So I can give it a link to a PDF that's in my OneDrive and say, tell me what the key points are. And I could even get it to do that as a poem if I wanted. You know, I can ask it like, what was the last, what are the outstanding actions for work related to a specific client or a specific project? And it will use that context to go away and find all of the relevant information. And then if we look at Copilot in Teams meetings, I mean, this is just absolutely fantastic. So I have tons of meetings. I know Luke alluded to it earlier, but my diary is an absolute nightmare. It's not uncommon for me to have like 3 or 4 meetings that people try to book for me at the same time. I think a personal record is 8 that people try to give me for the same time slot. And you know, when we think about how we work today in that scenario, I have to prioritize which is the most important meeting and try to find people to delegate to for some of them and rearrange them and move them around. And that admin, that like meeting admin and overhead can take quite a lot of time. So with Copilot in Teams meetings, there's a few different things that it does that's really powerful. One is, if I'm in a meeting that's being transcribed, then after the meeting, during the meeting, I can ask it questions about what's happening. So, you know, one that I like to use is who's been interrupted most in this meeting? Because if you've got someone who's constantly being interrupted, then actually, if you can recognize that, you can give them the space to make their point and have their voice heard, or follow up with them afterwards. which is super important. It can be really helpful to ask it, have we got any unresolved questions, so that you can use the last bit of the time in the meeting to really kind of drill into any unresolved questions before all of the people go their separate ways. And then after the meeting, you can get the recap, you get all of the insights and things like that, which can be shared with all of the other participants. But in the scenario where I've got lots of meetings and I'm having to figure out which one I can attend, with Copilot, I can actually go back and query Copilot for meetings that I wasn't in if I was on the invite list. So, you know, I can attend one meeting, and then for another meeting where I know it's being transcribed, I can choose not to attend. And after the meeting, I can go and spend 3 to 5 minutes with Copilot and basically ask it, you know, what was the purpose of the meeting, who was on the meeting, and what was their role. What decision was made in the meeting? Was it an easy decision, or were there disagreements about what decision to make? What were the actions? What were the unresolved items? You know, there's tons of stuff you can ask it to get the insights just as well as if you'd have been in the meeting, or go back and watch the recording. But I mean, who's got time to go back and watch the recording?
No, I'm with you on that. Especially, I know I don't have the calendar congestion that you have, Zoe, is the one. So I can only imagine the value it could add if I could go through and just ask it to summarize the pertinent themes of this meeting I missed. And I think you're right. I can't remember the last time I watched a recording of a meeting. It's the one, either that you're there, or typically you only go back in very, you know, extenuating circumstances that you really need to find that important piece of information. I think the next one is kind of, and we've kind of alluded to this throughout, is the one in terms of what is the overview of 365 Copilot. But we had a quick think before this session. We're thinking, you know, what does this actually mean for me? And obviously, I've got a more technical focus, and Zoe's got a more business focus, just the one. Now, I just thought about kind of how can it add value to me from a solution architecture perspective, and I thought about some of the key areas that I work in, and you know, I review designs, you know, derive roadmaps for proposed solutions. I'm really looking at joining kind of technology with business goals and what solutions can meet those requirements. Technical leadership in terms of offering kind of strategic thinking around what technologies we should use and how we should use them. Reviewing kind of whether it's code, whether it's documentation, whether it's designs. I did put coding in there, and that's a bit of a cheeky one because M365 Copilot wouldn't really do this. But GitHub kind of Copilot is pretty rocking as well, and I use a lot of that as well. So when I'm looking at projects in VS Code, I absolutely love GitHub Copilot. So I thought I'd throw that in as kind of an Easter egg. And the final one is communication. And I typically spend a lot of time working across Teams, Outlook, and whether that's across business or whether it's across technical, I do a lot of communications. And I thought, what are kind of some of the key areas or key examples I could actually use Copilot for, and how I could add value relatively quickly. And I think for me, one of the ones that Zoe called out earlier in the Word one is I have a whacking great document. Maybe it's a design doc, maybe it's a kind of a KB or an FAQ list. The ability to just turn that into a quick how-to for the help desk without me having to distill that information or that knowledge manually would be incredible. I do a lot of project calls in terms of how, you know, a proposed solution is going. I think, you know, maybe I want to pull out all the Teams chats related to that high priority incident or issue in the project that we're having and suggest a meeting agenda based on that summary. So could I just pull out all the information surrounding this high level project issue? We've got an escalation. Let's get an agenda slapped out with that, basically based on previous content. The Outlook one again, cheeky. Upon returning from holiday, maybe. I'm not a huge Outlook fan. I'm more Teams, and give it to me straight. Let's get chatting. Let's get talking. Real-time communications. I think this one would be awesome. The ability to summarize my email box from kind of give me what are the heavy hitters. What do I need to action first? After a lovely breakaway, go through my inbox and pull them out would be fantastic. The final one. I typically attend project boards every week about how, you know, how's the project going? Where are we technically with this? What are some of the key blockers, challenges, risks, issues, and so forth? I think the ability to basically feed in from, you know, the week's calls, the previous presentation, and kind of combine them in and build out that deck from existing sources would be incredible and save me a lot of time. And those are just some 4 quick and easy ones how it could help for me, and kind of scenarios that you can prep for and think about how this technology might be utilized. that's the solution architecture, technology focused. We'd probably hand it over to Zoe now for the business focus.
Yeah, sure. So my role, despite technology being a big part of my role, is very much more of a business focus. I've already talked about, the fact that I have lots and lots of meetings. I spend a lot of time doing analysis in Power BI and Excel. I have to create slides and Word documents by the bucket load both for internal and for client use. I have a really large network that I work with. I have a large internal network. I have a large network across our partners, and I have a large client network that I have to keep up with as well. And I also spend a lot of time providing coaching and training and development for people as well. So when we start to think about, there's someone who does the types of stuff that I do and how Copilot might help them, understanding, being able to quickly comprehend long documents or emails, whether that's a Word document, whether it's a PowerPoint, being able to find those useful insights quickly is super helpful. I've already talked about meetings and the fact that, getting those deeper insights and summaries for all meetings, including those that I can't attend, but actually also being able to get deeper insights for the meetings that I did attend is really powerful. Being able to speed up the creation of content, whether it's emails, whether it's Word docs, whether it's PowerPoint presentations, and that's both using existing files as a starting point or actually creating things just from a prompt. And then the people side of it is really important for me as well. Like I said, I've got a big network of people that I have to work with internally. So being able to quickly identify outstanding actions and tasks, being able to query our recent history, what have we talked about, what have we worked on together, and for those people that that I help coach and develop, being able to get those insights with more of a coaching lens as well using Copilot is super powerful. Do you want this one, Luke?
I think, yeah, let's go for it. I think this one should hopefully be a relatively quick and easy one. I think we've seen that, from the, how it helped me and Zoe, the overview of 365 Copilot. I think the key thing here is it's an incredible potential, but it must be balanced against limitations. And I think this is kind of a generic kind of statement, but it's really, it may contain inaccuracies, biases, or sensitive materials because they are trained on information from the internet, as well as basically your corporate data is the other key thing. It may not know about recent events, and struggles to understand and interpret sarcasm, irony, or humor. I think it's important to remember it's not human at the end of the day. And I think I might struggle with the sarcasm, irony, and humor part, but I think it's important to know that it is trained on the sources that are available to it. So it may not have a full comprehension of everything unless you kind of feed it that information. And I think that leads us nicely to kind of how to prepare really is the key part. What can you guys do? How can you get ahead of the curve? What are some of the key things that you need to think about if you're looking to get Microsoft 365 Copilot ready, as we'd say? And I think the first one, you're going to need an M365 E3 or E5, other licensing prerequisites. If you're on the M365 business plans, it's my understanding it's in standard or premium. Other ones you need to get ahead of. Identity, you're going to need a Microsoft Entra-based identity and formerly known as Azure AD. You're going to need an account in there basically to make this work. There's a prerequisite on have OneDrive basically up and running. Several features, I'm not entirely sure what they are, but they require users to have a OneDrive. I'm guessing it's for kind of storage of content that it's creating, or basically an index of specific to that person. M365 apps for enterprise, so the actual client that you're going to use. So whether it's Word, PowerPoint, you need to basically be on the current channel. So if you're on monthly, enterprise, semi-annual, you may want to look at that for your users you want to basically get up and running Copilot with. Some of the next ones are fairly self-explanatory, but I'll cover them regardless. This one's a bit cheekier. Outlook, you'll have to use a new Outlook client for Windows. There's a toggle currently in the top right in Outlook, whether that's you're on Windows and Mac, you can toggle on the new Outlook. And my understanding is Copilot's only going to be available in the new Outlook for Windows as opposed to the old one. Loop's a more recent addition, and if you want to make use of Loop within Copilot, you're going to have it enabled at the tenant level is the important thing. So if you don't have it enabled at the moment, you want to make use of Loop Workspaces and Copilot within, then it's important to get that toggled on and set up and basically up and running for your organization prior to getting Copilot up and running. Teams, this one's a slightly better message than the Outlook one. It's going to be supported on both the current and new version of Teams. So if you're on Teams 2.0, the existing Teams, I don't know if they call it legacy yet, but the Electron-based one, then is supported on both. And the final one is probably the most important one, is that it's really going to only be able to add the best experience if your content is actually in 365 is the important thing. So you really want to get your data and your corporate data into OneDrive, Exchange, SharePoint. Any other ones there, Zoe? I'm just trying to think. Those are the key ones for me. SharePoint is basically OneDrive and basically your files as your collaborative data is probably the best way of putting it. But for it to work effectively, you're going to want to store it in there, and how do you get that in there is the important thing. Now, I'll be honest. I'm gonna pass this one over to Zoe. I usually love security and identity, but I'm gonna shoot for Zoe. I've got some ideas on these, but I think she has a better grounding on these.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm sure many of you who are watching this webinar will remember Delve when that was first introduced. And what Delve did was essentially surfaced content that had incorrect permissions. So it didn't mean that Delve wasn't working properly or doing what it was designed to do. But what it did was shine a light on the fact that the permissions and the governance inside the tenant wasn't where it needed to be. I'm not going to touch on Entra because Luke's kind of talked about that already, but when we think about kind of the tenant and the content, this is a real concern for a lot of organizations who know that they've got issues with overshared content. They might have like a deep nested folder structure with stuff just having like really messy and chaotic permissions, and they don't know how to fix it. So when we think about getting ready for Copilot and the things that you need to do, for me, this is one of the most important things, because this is where the risk will come. If we look at things like moving content into 365, yes, you'll have a better experience if all of your content can be indexed by the semantic index. But actually, this is where the risk will be if there's stuff that people can find using Copilot that they shouldn't have access to. So getting an understanding of the overshared content that you've got and looking at things like the permissions and the access controls and the tenant defaults and the retention and the data loss prevention policies and things like that is a real key practical thing that you can do now while we wait for Copilot to go GA. And I know we've talked pretty much about M365 Copilot, but when I'm talking to clients around kind of modern work and the impact of Copilots on work, that's also actually including the Power Platform Copilots. And I used the example earlier of Power Automate and how it's going to be easier for people to use natural language to solve their business problems. Again, that introduces a level of risk, because if it's suddenly easier for people to automate stuff, it's easier for them to kind of potentially pump data somewhere where it shouldn't be, or connect to something that they shouldn't be able to connect to. So having that Power Platform Center of Excellence and the technology and people and processes to keep the apps and data safe is another really key practical thing that you can do now.
And I think, just before you cut over, I think from a technical standpoint, the things I'd probably be looking at is areas that are open to everyone, or have been shared with very wide audiences, and that's whether it's in a OneDrive, whether it's in SharePoint, whether it's in Teams, but in effect SharePoint. And I think I would look to basically run a number of kind of scripts, and I'm still kind of working through exactly how I approach it, but that's really the key. The things that are shared the widest are probably going to offer the greatest level of risk is the one. So that's what I would target in terms of prep for this, and ensure that they haven't been overshared. And I think the other one that Zoe had on the previous slide was retention, and how long things are kept is the other important thing. Sorry, go for it, Zoe, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just realised this slide's probably in the wrong place, because this isn't really something to do to get ready. But when we think about how Copilot works, that's basically using something that's called the semantic index. And this is a new capability that you get in Microsoft 365 E3 and E5. And when Copilot is enabled for your tenant, the semantic index will start to run. And what it does is it creates like this big 3D vector map of relationships and concepts and acronyms and phrases and people and files and things like this. So it starts to build this understanding of you know, how things are connected in the organization. And the example it uses here is, you know, if I ask it for a March sales report, it's not just looking for something called the March sales report, which is how traditional search works on keywords. It's actually understanding, because of this semantic index, this big map that's been built, that sales reports are something that are produced by Kelly, who works in the finance team, and they are created in Excel. And that means that it's able to give you much better results. So the semantic index is something that's really important to Copilot. It's kind of the, you know, the thing that the brain that drives all of the results. The benefit for E3 and E5 customers is that when this starts to run, when Copilot's turned on for the tenant and this starts to run, it's actually going to give a better search experience for everybody, even if they're not licensed for Copilot. So that's a really positive benefit. Again, though, if you've got issues with overshared content and things like that, having a better search could also make it easier for people to find things that they shouldn't have access to. And then sorry, go on. Tom.
Sorry, I think the only thing I was going to add to this was that I think there's a balance to be struck, that we want to get as much content as we can in, but to help feed the semantic index. But what we don't want to do is have overshared content in there. So it's finding that right balance and ingesting as much as we can, but while ensuring that it's kind of, I guess, not overshared is really the key.
Okay, so this is the last slide, and then I think we've got the demo and then the Q&A. So when we think about readiness for the organization, adoption and change management is such a crucial part of it. And I think that this is one of the big, like, generational technology changes that change and adoption is not optional for. For this to succeed, people need help to know how to bring this into the way that they work. And you know, I often use the example of like a Teams rollout, because if we want to help people adopt a new way of working with Microsoft Teams, we know what best practice looks like. It's been out for a few years. We've got lots of proven methods and programs that we can follow to make that successful. But with Copilot, it's new, and I don't think we actually all understand how this is going to change work yet. So when we think about how we get people to start using this, there's the first step, which is actually getting them to adopt the Copilot technology features. So understanding what this can do in the different apps and how it can help the things that they do now. So it's helping them do what they do now better. But what we actually need to do is to get the mindset into the organization where they can start to change how they work and start to think about new and different ways to achieve the same or better outcome. So a big part of that is looking at digital dexterity, looking at your current level of M365 maturity. Are people using the tools that you've got now? And while we wait for Copilot to go GA, start to really push that adoption and that maturity. Also work across the organization to understand how people feel about this. Are they scared? Are they worried for their jobs, like the stats that Luke showed earlier? Or do they see this as an opportunity? Are they excited? And start to capture and identify the different parts of the organization where you see this adding value. And then start to plan from a change and adoption perspective. Start now to plan what you need to do when Copilot is available, so that when that decision is made to bring it into the organization, you've already done some of that thinking, and you know how you're going to support your users as they embrace this really new and exciting way of working. All right.
Awesome.
Okay.
Let me just.
Awesome. Can you hear me,
all
Luke?
I was going to say, yeah, we can hear you just fine. Thanks, Sylvia.
You wanted to add something, Luke?
I was just going to say thanks very much for listening, guys. As ever, it's been a pleasure. I think this is the first time that me and Zoe actually brought this one out. So we're very excited to talk through it. I for one, am very jealous of Zoe's access to Copilot. I'm sure you guys are all waiting with bated breath to get access to it too. We will basically link out the GIF so you can actually see the demo in some way, shape, or form. So stay tuned on that one. That's all I wanted to add. Thanks, guys.
Great. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, Luke. It was an awesome presentation. So yeah, let's now switch things to Bruno from Syskit. He'll do a quick demo on how Syskit Point can actually help you prepare for the Copilot as a part of what, well, Zoe and Luke was just talking about. Bruno, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm all set. Great, thank you. And thank you again, Zoe and Luke, for your presentation. And it is amazing to see what Copilot is bringing to us. But now let's see how Syskit Point can help you expand on that. Today we are going to show you how to utilize the power of Syskit Point to enter the Copilot era more confidently. Because according to Microsoft, Copilot only retrieves information the user explicitly has access to, such as files stored in SharePoint. And this is really important to know. This means you need to know which user can access which content at any moment in time to prevent oversharing. So let's jump to a slide to quickly glance on the main features of Syskit Point. For those that are with us for the first time, let me introduce you to Syskit Point. Syskit Point is a management and governance platform for M365. It helps companies of any size with fast-growing environments, and especially in highly regulated industries, to get better control over user access, inventory, and management across multiple M365 workloads, as well as enforce governance policies. It provides deep visibility, easy cleanup, and control over external collaboration, oversharing, and user access. And most importantly, keeps your environment clean and properly governed from the creation to the end of life of your M365 workspace. That's all great, but let's now dive into the fun stuff and look at Syskit Point in action. I will go to my app. Great, we are here. So the number one step is to prepare. So we will start with reporting for deep visibility. Let's take a look at the most important point reports to get you started with reviewing who can access what in your environment. We will start with user access report. We'll go to reports on the user access. And here we will generate this report for our friend Korg Blanc here. Run the report. And while it is generating, I will tell you that this report gives you a complete overview on where a particular user has access to across all workspaces. And this includes direct and group given permissions. We support security, distribution, SharePoint, and M365 groups. And when it comes to workspaces, even shared or private teams and channels are included. Here you can also easily remove any unwanted access for this user. The action is in real time, and the report will be refreshed to show you the latest status after the action is performed. So let's say I want to remove Korg's access on this documents folder in the company news. We will just click quickly here on the remove access, and this will be removed. So this was from the user access report. But the next very powerful report is called permission metrics report. In this report, we showed you access of a specific user, and the permission metrics will help you explore permissions from the workspace side. Let's go to the permission metrics report. We'll go back to reports. Great, here it is. I will use my search bar to quickly find the QA team and to generate the report for that team. Nice. So it will show you who has access to what on this workspace down to file level, which is amazing. And you can also easily manage sharing links and access in real time. And the important thing is that if the access is given through a group, you can see the group membership directly from the report. And you can make sure that group access is not hiding and oversharing. Let me show you what I mean. So if I go to documents and to these bug reports, I can click on my external audit file and see that Alex, Eva, and Jonathan have permissions on this file, but also that QA team visitors is hiding sharing for Lucas and Mary. So be careful of that. And similar to this one, we also have another report called externally shared report, but it will only pinpoint a content that has been shared with an external user. So if that is one of your concerns, you can use that one instead. Great. So the next report I'm going to show you is sharing links, because it is also important to manage your sharing links so they don't go out of hand in your environment. We'll go back to reports, to my sharing links reports, easy as that. And again, I will use my QA team for this because I like them so much. So this report will show you all types of sharing links, but besides well-known dangerous anonymous links, company-wide links are also very dangerous because they don't need to be shared with the person. And person is maybe not even aware of this access. But if you created a company-wide link on a file, Copilot will be utilizing this content to provide info to every employee. I can quickly show you how to fix that in this report. We can filter by our company-wide links and use our actions to remove the sharing link. Quick as that. And the last report I'm going to show you is our group access report. This report will show you where a particular group has access to. So let's find that report. This time I will filter by our Microsoft Teams and groups and go to group access. And here, the most interesting group to look at is everyone group. So let's run the report for this group. Because it shows you which content is accessible to anyone, you can make sure that this group is not widely spread, especially not over the sensitive content. And these are just the top pinpointed reports to get you started, because Point offers a wide range of reports which you can explore on your own. But this is not all. This is just a beginning, a cleanup for a fresh start. And the next thing is to automate, keeping M365 cleaned and properly governed throughout the workspace lifecycle. So let's just go back to our slides so I can show you what I mean. Great, this is here. So Point offers complete governance solution from the workspace creation till the end of life. And with the self-service workspace center, we allow you to empower your end users to review all workspaces they own, review all workspaces available in the company they can request access to, and also request new workspaces with control templates, approval flows, and governance policies defined by admins. And during this life cycle, we provide governance policies that can be applied either during provisioning, but also to already existing workspaces. And you can utilize our policy automation engine to specify which governance policies should be applied to which workspaces based on a specific set of rules. For example, sensitivity labels, privacy settings, metadata, or workspace type. And with this automation, you know that workspaces stay governed regardless of how it is created, even using the Copilot. And for example, with the policies, you can ensure that each workspace has appropriate number of owners, or make sure that external user access is reviewed on a regular basis, and so on. But the most important one when we talk about preventing oversharing is access review policy. With this automation policy, Point asks your owners to periodically audit user access to shared content, sites, themes, sharing links, and so on. And this will be it for this demo, but if you liked what you see or would like to investigate Point possibilities on your own, please try our 21-day free trial with no strings attached and fully functional. It is really great, and you all received an invite to free trial to your inboxes. There is also a Point brochure available to download in the chat to read more about it. That will be all. So Silvio, back to you. You can take it over.
Thank you, Bruno. Very nice presentation here. And yeah, I mean, now it would be the time for the Q&A session, but we did went a bit overboard with the time. So, and we have a ton of questions. So look, Zoe, I'm just going to drop one or two shortest questions I can find, and then, well, you can reply to them. Is that okay?
Well, it's me.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, so as I said, I'm going to be reading the shorter ones here. Will Copilot work with Viva Engage?
So I'll take this one. I can see the face. So Viva Engage will get its own Copilot. Microsoft have announced, I haven't even counted how many there are, but there are essentially Copilots for many of their products. So there'll be Copilots in Microsoft Viva, M365 Copilot, Bing Chat Enterprise, GitHub Copilot. All of the Dynamics products will have a Copilot. There's Security Copilot, Sales Copilot, and tons of other Copilots. So M365 Copilot, I'm not sure how that will interact with Copilot in Viva yet or Viva Engage, but it's going to have its own Copilot anyway.
Okay. Thank you, Zoe. I think you also answered a couple of other similar questions there. Next one, will education tenants be considered for Copilot access?
I don't know.
I mean, I can speculate. I would expect them that they will be, because typically the education ones are typically a cut down subset of, say, your enterprise license and so forth. Business and standard are catered for. I would be surprised if we didn't see it for education. Is the simple take from my point of view. I'd be surprised if they missed that opportunity. But that's pure speculation on my part. I don't have a definitive answer one way or the other. If Zoe doesn't have it, then your best guess is me guessing. Is honestly what it is. So I would expect to see it. They typically just cut down what is in the A SKUs.
Okay, thank you, Luke. And one that I believe actually interests everyone. So, do you have a timeline for deployment of Copilot? So, when will it be widely available?
That's the question everybody's got, and even I'm
I
not that. So if Microsoft know when they're releasing this, they're keeping it very close to their chest. My personal take on it, and again, I've had no indication, but my personal take is that hopefully we'll get some news at Ignite. I don't know what that news will be, but Ignite is in mid-November. So hopefully that question around when we're all going to be able to get Copilot will be answered by then.
Okay. So yeah, I think I'm gonna have to close it up with these questions, with this last question, which was kind of, I believe, something that interested everyone. So yeah, once again, absolutely, thank you everyone for joining us for today's webinar. As mentioned, everyone who registered will receive a recording. Thank you again, Zoe, Luke. Great presentation, great topic. Hope to see you again. It was a pleasure co-hosting with you, although I didn't do much of the work. You did everything. So is there anything else you want to say to the, well, wide audience?
Just a huge thank you. And if there are questions that have not been answered, I'm happy if you want to share them with us, and me and Luke can answer them separately. Or if people have got questions, they can reach out to either of us on LinkedIn or Twitter as well. And we, we're here to help.
Sure. Okay. Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah,
so
I mean, for me, same.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't interrupt
what
you.
Zoe said, really. Feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn. Oh, no, I think it's my signal. You have to forgive us. What I was going to say, thanks a ton for having us as ever. This is the hottest topic in the world right now. As far as I see it, I'm just as excited as you guys to get my hands on it. So yeah, thanks for coming and let us talk today.
Great. Thank you, Luke. Zoe, once again, thank you, everyone. If you have any questions regarding Syskit Point, our company, feel free to reach out to us to sales@syskit.com. And yeah, it was a pleasure having you all. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one now.